Hello, and welcome to Convinced Catholicism, a place for all things Catholic. Today's episode is a special one because it is a book that's no longer in print. It is Key of Heaven. Before we get into the details of this amazing little devotional book, I just want to say thank you to my locals supporters. If you want to support the show in a monetary way, you can do so for as little as $2 a month through Locals, which is like Patreon, but more in favor of freedom of speech. I also have a podcast with a few episodes already. I encourage you to check those out. And of course, you can do something that's absolutely for free besides the podcast, which is subscribe. And then you can get notified whenever a new episode comes out. We're almost at 400 and even 500. Let's try to make it to at least 1,000. Okay, so Key of Heaven. This episode is brought to us by my in-laws. I received this book for Christmas. I'm incredibly blessed to have not only my mom and dad who are religious, but also my in-laws as well. Key of Heaven is a pre-Vatican II prayer book, and it's technically still useful, but I would say in mainstream Catholicism, this is more useful for, say, additional scriptural readings, as we'll see, and for litanies and devotions and morning prayer. So everything in this book is still valid, including the order of the Mass, except that you would have to find a pre-Vatican II Tridentine Mass in order to read along, I guess you could say. As you could probably already tell, this book is tiny. It is 3.5 inches wide, about 5 inches tall, and not even 1 inch thick. So that is quite tiny. I mean, it almost disappears in my hand. A good magician can make this appear and disappear. I mean, I love books like these. I can't tell if the cover is genuine leather or synthetic. It's one of those grained, amazing leathers. And my in-laws hit a home run when buying this because it's in usable condition. And usually, I love old books, but usually they smell so much I can't really use them. I get very sensitive to that. And this I can use. But let's take a look at what's inside. Key of Heaven. Nice color artwork. I don't know. I think this is the only color artwork in the book, or at least one of the few examples. It's from the Catholic Book Publishing Company, which they've been around forever. It says New York, but I think currently they're in Paterson or Totowa, New Jersey. I'm from Jersey, and I really like that. Local. So the original version, or the original edition, is from 1940, but I believe this version is from 1952, as we can see here. And it has, here's the contents: Table of Movable Feasts, Holy Days of Obligation, Fasting and Abstinence, 10 Commandments, 6 Commandments, 8 Beatitudes, a lay baptism, morning prayers, litany of the Holy Name of Jesus, prayers during the day, Angelus Domini, Regina Coeli, grace before meals, grace after meals, night prayers, litany to the BVM, prayers at Mass, which are meant to be prayed privately. These are not the words of the Mass. This is during the Latin Mass when people would be praying their own things during the Mass. The ordinary of the Mass, so you can follow along in English rather than Latin. Devotions for confession, devotions for Holy Communion, the Vesper service of Sunday, which you can kind of adapt or modify to pray every day, in my opinion. Anthems of the BVM, Benediction of the Blessed Sacrament, Litany, Stations, Rosary, 30 Days Prayer, which I think a lot of these prayers have fallen into obscurity, which if you find a copy of this, you bring them back. Psalms and an index of hymns. This is great. Has a few Psalms. Not all of them, but these are kind of important ones. I would say that the glaring omission. The glaring omission is Psalm 50, but that's okay. You know, this is not designed for you to be praying the Psalms per se. This is much more of a devotional. And so, yeah, this goes all the way to 1974. So we're covered, you know. We know all the holy days all the way to 1974, which is a long way from now. Holy days of obligation for US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. I don't know why they don't include UK, because obviously English is English. Maybe the spelling, but Australia has the same spelling as Great Britain. Some catechetical information. Okay, morning prayer. It's interesting because it goes through, well, this is beautiful artwork here, isn't it? Alpha and Omega, Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritu Sancto. Holy Trinity right there. A rare portrayal of all three persons of the Trinity. At awaking, at rising out of getting out of bed, after you're dressed, and it goes through all different things, which is amazing. I really like that. And it could be considered a little lengthy, but that's so good. That's okay, because it's customizable. And I like these litanies as well. This, of course, is not like official breviary stuff, but it's meant for the lay person who just wants to have a relationship with Christ. Prayers during the day. And I find these interesting, the prayers at Mass. I think this is good for someone who wants to get into the traditional Latin Mass but can't really follow along for whatever reason. They can start praying this. They can go through it, and not to mention, not for nothing, but look how big that text is. We have so much information in this book, yet it fits so well. So much information in this book, and the font is so big. I feel like they knew how to publish and print books back then, and that's kind of a lost art. Very interesting how they have some of these devotional prayers during different parts of the Mass. Let's see what they have during the consecration. This is interesting here. At the elevation, which is not the consecration, but it's close enough, right? My Lord and my God, which of course is a quote from St. Thomas. And you can beat your chest while that happens as well. That's something I do. And it says here, these words are to be said with faith, piety, and love while looking upon the Blessed Sacrament, either during the elevation in the Mass or when exposed on the altar. And it's an indulgence of 7 years. That's something that we've kind of not done away with, but we've kind of modified these indulgences of a day or 30 days or 7 years or whatever, because it became too confusing for Catholics to follow along with how long they would be in purgatory, because purgatory is not exactly a temporal state of being. It is sort of an endurance, I guess you could say. I might do an episode of my podcast on the different Catholic beliefs of purgatory, because there are actually a lot. Okay, so here are the, let's go to the ordinary of the Mass. So we can see here that we have some of it in the Latin and Greek, and we also have it in the English, which is really, really convenient. I'm really fortunate to have several churches in my area. I have a Latin Mass parish that's about 10 or 15 minutes away from me. I have a Byzantine Catholic church. I have two Byzantine Catholic churches that are 5 minutes away from me. I have a ton of Roman Catholic, and I've never been to any Orthodox churches, but there's 4 that are 5 minutes away from me. I live in a very cosmopolitan East meets West area, which is a great, great blessing. And I go to the Latin Mass every once in a while, and next time I go, I'll definitely take this book. It's very wonderful. And what's even nicer, I think, is you have all the epistles for the Sunday and the gospel for the Sundays, which is quite extraordinary. This is kind of like the Book of Common Prayer in many ways, in which you see all these different prayers for different sacraments, morning and evening prayer. It doesn't have the whole of the Psalms in it, but I think that this book is kind of a competitor to the Book of Common Prayer for Anglicans in many ways, because it offers so much of it, which I find amazing. And for Catholics who go to the ordinary form or the Novus Ordo, these are not going to line up. But I think if you want to go home and pray these or read these scriptures and epistles as a devotional, I think it's a great choice. And speaking of devotionals, these litanies have fallen by the wayside in many ways. I find this 30 days prayer particularly interesting. By the devout recital of this prayer during the 30 days, we may firmly hope to obtain our lawful request. It is particularly recommended as a proper devotion for every day in Lent and all the Fridays throughout the year. That's just so amazing and beautiful. I think I'll definitely add this to my Lenten devotions for this year, which, Christmas is over, and that means it's right around the corner. I feel like this book just has so many hidden gems in it, just in a way that no matter how long you use it, you'll always find something new to include in your prayer life. And I feel like this is something that I'm going to carry around forever. And I'm eternally grateful to my in-laws for not only being religious themselves, but also supporting me in my faith. And I'm eternally grateful to God and the Catholic Church for supplying such a rich tradition. And unfortunately, there's not going to be a link down in the description for this book because it's not available per se. I wish Catholic Book Publishing Company published something like this, and they sort of do with a previous book I reviewed. But I feel like this is just, it doesn't really match this per se, but you can be fortunate enough to find editions from throughout the years. And if you are fortunate enough to find one, say on eBay or Etsy or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, pick a copy up. This is just more of a curiosity nowadays than anything, but I want to share it with you. And maybe if someone is interested in creating a prayer book, or if a publisher is watching this, recreate this. Find the epistles and the gospels for modern Sundays and recreate this book. I would buy it in a heartbeat, and I would review it, and I would recommend it to everyone. Thank you very much, and God bless.